All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Okay, we've got a great conversation that we have to get into. And we're discussing Ruto, William Ruto, the president of Kenya, who has been on the news recently as a result of the protest that's going on in this country. And I want to address a lot of things, and I want to discuss a question that I'm putting forth to you all regarding William Ruto. Is he a Western puppet? That is the question on the table today. And that's the question that we're going to address in this podcast. And I'm going to use a series of events in the past, as well as this interview by Al Jazeera, to discuss this. And we're going to try to answer this question. I think that when you listen to this interview by Al Jazeera, you would find much about who this man is. I was particularly impressed with the reporter, the interviewer, who did an amazing job to press him on various issues, including his support, his dying support to the West, his relationship to the West, his involvement and the position that he takes with the West, with the United States as it relates to the issue in Gaza, and also his relentless support to the United States, supporting Israel's genocide in Gaza against the Palestine. His support on that, she pressed him on that. She also pressed him on his willingness to send troops to Haiti when there are issues in his country that he is not addressing. So I want to focus most of my podcast on this because I think that William Ruto, to many of us who really were excited about him when he came in to office on September 13th, 2022, which is almost 2 years ago, many people were very excited about him. Many people saw him as a revolutionary leader, someone that people would at least embrace, and he could be the person that would bring change to Kenya. Many people had a lot of hope for him. He obviously impressed the youth in his country. So it's amazing now that we're seeing the same youth in his country who are now disappointed at this president. He has now become a disappointment to a lot of us in Africa. So we're going to talk about that. And more importantly, I want to start this podcast by addressing the issues that he's currently having in his country as it relates to tax hike. William Ruto recently proposed a controversial financial bill, which they named Finance Bill 2024, to increase taxes in this country, which has now led to a lot of the protests that is going on in Kenya right now as a result of that. Tax hike that are on bread. Can you imagine 16%? Let me give you some rundown real quickly. 16% value added tax on bread, 2.5 tax on motor vehicles. These were two controversial taxes amongst the other ones that we're going to talk about, which because of the protests that's been going on in Kenya, they've since removed these. But then there are other taxes that he's levying on his people. So we're going to have a great conversation about this. But again, remember what I said in the beginning of this video. Is Ruto, that's the question we're asking, and that's the question we're going to answer in this podcast. Is William Ruto a Western puppet? Has he lived up to the promises that he made when he was campaigning and when he came into office, which is to bring change to his country, to reduce the poverty in his country, to increase the economic situation in his country? Has that been the case? Or has he leaned towards really impressing Europe and the West throughout the entire almost 2 years in office? So we're going to discuss this. We're going to have this conversation because obviously he's the opposite of the likes of Ibrahim Traore. So before we do that, I want to just, first things first, again, I want to thank one of you who was kind enough to give a $10 super chat on my previous video. So I want to say kudos to @Chef_Ed1 for your $10 super chat on my last video. You, my man, are an amazing person. So kudos to you for the $10 super chat. I truly, truly appreciate that. And so, folks, just keep the super chats coming. And as you keep them coming, I will give you all the kudos that you duly deserve on that. So thank you again for the $10 super chat. Okay, so let's get into this video. All right, so as I mentioned earlier on, we're going to first start this video and this podcast as it relates to the current situation in Kenya with the growing protest that's been going on for the last couple of days over the tax hike that is happening in Kenya. Now, according to Ruto, his reasons for these taxes is to prevent the country from borrowing money from the IMF. That is his reason for this tax. He wants to self-generate the revenue in his country to prevent him from going to borrow money from the IMF because Kenya currently right now is broke. However, when you look at the taxes, the areas where these taxes are being levied on, you can almost kind of see how he's squeezing, most especially the young people who voted him in, the younger electorate. I mean, look at these stuff, for example, right? He's proposing, and this is still a proposal, right? His parliament are planning on voting this in on Tuesday. So this is a bill that's floating around, and the likelihood of it passing is a strong likelihood. There's a strong chance of this passing. However, this has now caused the civil unrest in this country. But when you look at this situation here, right, you can almost make the argument that this is targeted towards the younger demographics in this country. He's got a digital content monetization tax of 5%. So that means if you are a content creator in Kenya, you're about to start paying 5% on your tax. Not to mention the VAT exemption removal. Income tax. People in Kenya are having a hard time finding a job, and they're going to pay additional income tax on top of what they're paying already. In addition to household products, basic household products, goods and supplies that they're paying anywhere from 3% withholdings, tax on goods. So these are the type of tax that he is levying on his people, right? Which is squeezing an already burdened workforce demographics in Kenya, which is why there's this protest that has been going on. So I want you to take a listen and look at this reporting from Al Jazeera. And I'll be right back.
It started with social media users blaming Kenya's President William Ruto for the rising cost of living and tax hikes. Now it's brought thousands to the streets. Protesters gathered near Kenya's parliament as MPs debated the legislation to increase taxes.
We are paying all their salaries, we are paying their houses, allowances, and we are paying our taxes. We are not getting roads, we are not getting hospitals, enough medicine in the hospitals.
Police tried to clear the streets. The government says it's already listened to the people when it removed some of the most controversial taxes from the bill.
Every time the police fire tear gas the protesters moving to the side streets, this group has surrounded a police vehicle with riot police in the back. They're waiting to find out what they'll do. But each time they're dispersed, they regather. The police crackdown doesn't seem to be putting them off.
The police in the vehicle, outnumbered, had to leave. So did these officers as people chanted, "We are peaceful." The protesters, who were mostly peaceful, then occupied several streets in the city centre. So the police used water cannon and tear gas to seal off the streets closest to Parliament. Inside, about 2/3 of MPs voted to approve the amended bill at its second reading. President Ruto has a majority. Outside, people said his government doesn't represent them and they're tired of corruption and poor service delivery.
Children are not getting sufficient vaccination in hospitals. And now you're going to impose taxes on wheelchairs. These are differently abled children. So far, since he came into power, what has he done with our taxes? Nothing.
Okay, so let's talk about this. As you can see, there is a growing call for him to step down. You know, the chant, Ruto must go, has become a norm now since the protest took place. People want him out of there. because he's causing nothing but undue hardship to most especially Gen Zs, who you are seeing protesting on the streets, who are already squeezed beyond they can handle already. And so here's the concern that I have, as well as many of the young people in Kenya have, is that these men, the president that came in, Ruto, William Ruto, who campaigned and gave pretty speeches when he first took office in 2022 about how he was going to reduce poverty, how he was going to improve the way of life for his people. However, that's not what we're seeing. But what we've seen with Ruto, he's taking expensive trips to international countries to go buddy up with the likes of the West and Europe. I mean, let me show you a couple of these trips that he has taken since being in office, just a little under 2 years ago. So the moment he got to office, his first trip was to the United Kingdom, right? To go buddy up over there with the prime minister and the royal family. That was his first trip. And then the most controversial one, United States, which he made about a month ago, which he chartered a $1.5 million private jet to go see Biden. It was a huge controversy. So here's a man who is talking about, well, our country is broke. We don't have money. So we need to go ahead and tax you all. But somehow he's able to find $1.5 million to go charter a private jet to go see President Biden. Can you imagine that? Talk about a person who is out of touch. Talk about a person who is not in tune with reality. And so he gets to live lavishly. He gets to live like a king, to be impressive to Europeans, white people in England, in the United States, while his people are suffering. So let me go ahead and tax you guys to pay for this trip that I took to the United States. Me and my wife to go to show, to be impressive, to impress them, right? So that's another one. And then he goes to Italy in May of 2023. Last year, makes a trip to Italy. Again, these are European countries now. And then he goes to France right after that in June of 2023. So you ask yourself, where are his priorities? Where are his priorities? So you can almost kind of see that this man fits the model of the type of deceptive leaders that Africa has been plagued with for years, who come in and have fancy speeches. They promise heaven and earth just to get our vote. And when we vote them in, they do the opposite of what they've talked about. You expect this from many countries. Yes, a lot of politicians. That's mostly what you expect from many countries. However, what we've seen with African leaders is not just that they don't keep their campaign promises, is that they sell their country to the West and Europe. That is what Africa has been plagued with from a lot of these so-called leaders, whom many African countries have had the unfortunate circumstances to have. So now we have William Ruto, who in the last year and almost 2 years in office has done more to impress the West, has done more to go to Europe, to go to the United States, to stay faced with them, to stand with their cause, to stand and vote with whatever they're doing. He stands with the United States, with whatever the United States wants to do, whether U.S. is supporting a genocide as it relates to Israel's genocide against Palestine. He's like, we're with you, whatever you want to do, no big deal. He supports England in whatever they want to do, no big deal. Italy, no big deal. He's all about trying to impress white people. And his people who voted him in, who are paying his taxes, who are giving him the lifestyle that he has, his people are suffering. So, again, I want you to remember the question that's on the table. Is William Ruto a Western puppet? So then that brings me now to the interview that we're going to talk about with Al Jazeera. And I want you to pay attention, because this is going to also give you an insight to this man and the policies and the stands that he's taken since being in office, which in many cases has been a disappointment to every one of us. I want you to take a look at the way she pressed him on many issues, which he was very, very uncomfortable to answer. And I think that reporter, kudos to her, because this is how a reporter needs to press head of states, whether they're in Africa or presidents or anywhere in the world. And I'm so glad that she pressed him on it and he folded. So take a look at this and we'll have a good conversation.
Your trip comes at a very turbulent time in the world, and the United States is central to this turbulence that is playing out in the Middle East. There's growing public outrage over what is happening in Gaza, in Rafah. The International Court of Justice ordered an immediate ceasefire and a withdrawal from Rafah by Israel. A couple of days ago, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Hamas and, of course, some leadership of Israel, including the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. When you first came into office, one of your first stops, if not your first stop, was to Israel in May 2023. You described your relationship with Israel as being fruitful, as being strong, as being friendly. But in light of these developments, have you changed your mind? Are they still a friend?
Israel is a great friend of Kenya. And we believe that that should go into the future. We made a very clear statement when Israel was attacked that it was wrong. We have also made a very clear statement when there were excesses in the use of force, when children were attacked, when there were atrocities, committed against the people of Palestine. We made a very strong statement that was also wrong.
Did you catch what she said? Did you catch that? She said, by your friends. And he tried to avert that question. Because these are the people that he calls friends, Israel. And later on, you'll see her ask him question like, did you also tell your friend, the United States, not to support and supply arms to Israel to kill women and children the way they've done in Gaza? Did you do that? And I want you to take a listen to his answer. But I just wanted to point out how she was able to point that. These are your friends. And he tried to avoid that.
Because two wrongs cannot amount to a right. And we are firm in our belief of two things. That the situation in Middle East, the situation in Gaza cannot be solved using military means. That's number one. And number two, we also are of the firm belief that a two-nation solution is the way to go. We believe in self-determination. We believe in the existence of Israel as a nation and as a friend, but we also believe in the existence of Palestine as a state. And that is our position. And we will not walk away from that. That has been Kenya's position. That continues to be Kenya's position.
At the United Nations, it's true that you voted 3 times for a ceasefire. The United States blocked that move, so there's a misalignment between you and the United States on that. You also voted recently for the recognition of the Palestinian state. You've spent a lot of time with President Biden. It's all very well to say we believe in the two-state solution, but when you are sitting with him, are you pushing strongly for an end to this calamity in the Middle East? Since the United States is seen as being central, it can stop this calamity with the sale of arms. It is perpetuating this calamity. Did you say anything about that?
The position of Kenya is known. It is not for me to decide.
You are sitting with him in the room.
It is not for me to decide the position of the United States of America.
Can we not tell your friends not to support a genocide?
And our position has been very clear when it comes to a two-state solution. It is not a position that we acquired yesterday. It is a position that has been and continues to be Kenya's position. irrespective of the positions of other countries, because we prosecute our own agenda, we speak for ourselves, we think for ourselves, and we drive our own
Mr. President, you are in the capital of the
globally.
world, in the most powerful capital in the world. You've got international aid organizations pleading and crying for help. We are seeing mass graves, children being starved and emaciated. You are here right now at this pivotal, significant political moment. Surely it's not enough to say we as Kenya call for a two-state solution when you are sitting with the man whose country is selling arms to Israel. Why not leverage your proximity and your advantage to appeal for reason?
Let me tell you, my sister, Kenya has done its bit. We have taken...
So in other words, he's a coward. That's exactly what she is discovering from this man. That's exactly what he is showing. He's a coward. She's asked him, you were right there with President Biden. You came on this expensive trip. And you're right there sitting with the President of the United States, who is right now providing arms to a country that's causing mass genocide against a people in Palestine. Women and children are killed and massacred. You're standing with him, right? Isn't it your responsibility to tell your friend that this is not good? As much as we know that Israel has a right to support itself, everyone says no one is doubting that. But there's a difference between you defending yourself against an outside force attack and also causing mass genocide against a people in Palestine. There is a huge difference between that. Any leader, anyone who shuts a blind eye to that type of genocide and killing of men, women, and children, that type of massacre, is a horrible human being. And so you're sitting right there with President Biden on this trip, and she's asking him, did you think it was right for you to tell him? You were sitting right there, and he's dancing around this. He's saying stuff like, it's not our place to tell the United States what to do. Okay, so hold on a second. It's not your place, but the United States can dictate to African leaders what they can and cannot do. See how this works? You're saying that it's not your place to tell the United States how they need to handle their policy, but it's your place to take instructions and orders from them against what happens in your own country and your own region. We're going to get to how the United States has ordered Kenya to supply military force. It was an order to go and fight in Haiti, something that has nothing to do with Kenyans. And this man wants us to believe that he is not in his place to tell the United States president what to do with his policy. But then he can take orders from this white Western president as it relates to his deployment of troops to another country to go and meddle in their own situation. You see the cowardice in this man? Do you see that? Okay.
The firmest position when our alliance, when our interests converge with the United States, we stand together. When they don't, we stand separately. But that does not mean we become enemies. That does not mean it affects our friendship. It's just because it is what it is.
Well, you clearly are the United States' favorite partner then, because it has threatened anyone who stands against it, even Congress here introducing bills to punish countries, to punish the International Criminal Court. But for some reason, you are escaping that kind of censor. Does that indicate that you are not pushing hard because you are allies with Israel and you are...
Because he's a puppet. That is an amazing question. Man, I love this journalist. Because he's a puppet. Because she just called him out on it. That, hold on a second. We have seen people sanctioned. We've seen voices like quieted. We've seen voices, people lose jobs. We've seen such backlash or some kind of consequences against anyone who speaks up against the situation that Israel is doing in Gaza, on the Gaza Strip. And the fact that he has not had any of these types of things against him. What does that say about Ruto? What does that say? You can almost feel that she wants to call him a puppet. You can almost sense that she was trying to hold it in to be professional, to go through this interview. But that's exactly what it is. He's a puppet. He dances to the tune of the United States. He wants to please the U.S. so bad. He wants to please President Biden. He wants to please Emmanuel Macron. He wants to please the Italian Prime Minister. He wants to please England. He wants to please these white folks over doing the right thing as it relates to his position as an African leader, the right thing with his people who are right now in dire straits, who are in suffering, the right thing as a human being and as a leader of a free country to speak what is right. He's a coward. He's a coward.
Nursing these relationships even in the face of such catastrophe.
That's your opinion, and it doesn't necessarily reflect what Kenya stands for. As I have told you, we are very firm in our belief on a resolution of the conflict in Gaza, not by military means. We do not support what is going on in terms of women, children, mass graves. And we have made our position very clear. And secondly, there are countries who don't believe in a two-state solution for the Middle East. We do, and we are unapologetic about it because we believe that is the right position. Right. Israel must exist as a state, and they are our friend, but Palestine too must exist as a state.
Let's talk about another hot potato, Haiti. Yes, here we are. You are leading the mission to send, over 1,000 police officers to Haiti to try and stabilize that country, the gang violence, the kidnappings, and so on. But the history of Haiti and U.S. involvement is not irrelevant there. There's a history of failed international peacekeeping missions led by the U.S. and the United Nations. Haitians themselves are very anxious and not trusting of such missions. The U.S. is contributing more than $300 million, and those opposed to this see this as an extension of the troublesome U.S. hand in Haitian affairs, and that Kenya is somehow being used as a proxy to further the interests of the U.S. there. What is the basis for your confidence given the history?
This is not the first mission Kenya is engaged in. We have been in 47 other missions around the world, including in very difficult places like Kosovo. We have built experience, we have built understanding, and I am very confident that Kenya has what it takes to be able to handle the situation in Haiti. Number two, we also believe that the responsibility rests with countries like Kenya and others that believe in democracy, in freedom, in the rule of law, and in peace. And we believe that the same way we need peace and security in Kenya, and in all the other places we have supported peace and security, so does the people in Haiti. And the reason why Kenya has been called upon to participate.
That is such a BS response. Because the only reason, right, he's sending troops to Haiti is because the United States ordered him to do it. It has nothing to do with what he's just talking about. Because you're meddling in other people's situation. You have your own problems to solve. It's the same thing. That's the same. He's learning the ways of the West and Europe. You got issues in your country. Now you're going to meddle in other countries, especially in a country who has a distrust for Western and Europeans who have been meddling in their country. That is why Haiti has been having the issues they're having. And you can't blame them. Because all Haiti has seen since that country was birthed has been everything from Europeans coming and meddling in their country. They've seen French forces. They've seen United States in there. They've seen Germans. They have seen nothing but foreigners come into their country and meddle in their situation. And here you have an African president who should know this. If there's anything that Africa should be fully aware of and against, is any foreign entity meddling in their country. That is the way of Europeans. That is the way of Western people, to go meddle on a country's situation. But they hate it when you do it in their country. They hate foreigners to come to their country and tell them what to do. But they will use an African who is willing to be a puppet, who wants to dance to their tune. They will use him to do a proxy war in another country. So all that stuff he's saying is all, again, mouthpiece. Because the only reason he's sending Kenyans to go and die in Haiti, to go to this situation in Haiti, is because the United States ordered him to do it. It has nothing to do with him trying to bring peace to Haiti and all of that nonsense that he just said. He's such a puppet for the United States. And he doesn't see what they're using him to do. They're using him, they're putting him as a face, because that's what they do. They use him as a face against his own people. That's what they do. So they want to act like they're not part of this. So that way, when Haitians see Kenya, right, and Kenyan troops in the country, they'll take the fight to Kenya. So Kenya now gets involved in a fight that they don't even have a business in. It's not a business. That's how they set us against each other. That's how they paint us against each other. And this guy, this president of a country in Africa, who should know better, is falling for it. Such a disappointment.
And to take lead in Haiti is because it's difficult. That's the reason. If it wasn't difficult, maybe other countries would have been asked to do it.
No,
is Kenya the right country to do it?
Shenanigans. Do you understand this? Other countries were asked and they said, no, we're not doing it. Because they didn't want to be a puppet, right, to the United States, because they see the handwriting on the wall. You just chose to be a puppet. It has nothing to do with you being brave, because Kenyans don't support that. Kenyans, his own countrymen and women, don't support that. So you're setting your country up for a long fight and a long conflict against Haiti. Long after he's gone, there's still going to be the animosity. That's what he's doing. And they're using him to set that up. And he doesn't see it.
Given that your own police force have been accused of extrajudicial killings at home, police brutality, human rights groups are criticizing the human rights records of police in Kenya. 136 extrajudicial killings in the past year. They're not up to the task.
Our history in peacekeeping, our history in peacemaking is up to scrutiny. Anybody can judge what Kenyans have done, both within and without. When I came into office, I made a commitment that there will never be any extrajudicial killings in Kenya. And that is the case.
But you supported the police when they cracked down on protesters.
And I intend to keep it that way.
Did you not support the police?
Any police, men or women, who use extra constitutional means that are not provided for, we have an independent police oversight authority that have taken policemen to court.
All right, that's enough of that. I can't stand to hear him anymore. All that whole, the parliament approved this. Yes, this is the same ones in your own party who are approving a controversial bill that's going to impose undue hardship on your people. So sure, if you want me to believe that a parliament in your party who are bought and paid for to pass bills, right, at your request and at your order, if you want me to believe that that's democracy, sure. Sure. Anyhow, let's discuss this and I'll close this video. Based on the information that we've just talked about and we've just heard of on that video and the scorecard of William Ruto, I can conclusively say that William Ruto, right, is a Western puppet. Every action and every move that he's made since he's been in office has been to please international and foreigners, more so than looking out for his own people. He has spent more time out of Kenya than he has been in Kenya, enjoying trips, going on lavish vacations, spending Kenyans' taxpayers, right, dime to live this lifestyle and to impress the West. Dancing to their tune. Whenever they call, he jumps. Whenever they tell him, take a hike, he takes a hike. He doesn't question them. This is an example of a puppet leader in Africa. Now, guess who suffers in this? We Africans, Kenyans suffer. Because Kenyans are the ones holding the bag at the end of the day. This man goes and he does deals. He gets involved in situations. He doesn't consult his country. A few people in his parliament that he knows that he can bend to his will, right? He uses them to pass certain things and to move his agenda forward. While the vast majority of Kenyans are suffering. When this man is gone, long after he's gone, Kenyans are going to be left holding the bag. It's the same story in Africa. It's the same story in Africa. Isn't that why Africa is where it is today? That we'll have leaders like this man, right? Who would do things, right, under our noses. And we Africans are the ones left holding the bag. We, our sons, our daughters, our grandkids, our generations, after these guys have caused the damage, have long gone. We are the ones held holding the bag. And I'm so proud of the Gen Zs in Kenya. I am so proud of them fighting back at this. I am so proud of the Gen Zs in Kenya. They say no to this. Because that's what happens when you squeeze people beyond what they can afford. When you squeeze people, people are suffering. There are no jobs. There's no situation that's improving the lives of Kenyans. And then you have a president who lives a lavish lifestyle, dresses in fancy suits, goes on trips, dances to the will of foreigners, right? At the detriment of his own people. Every president's mandate, every president, every head of states, every leader who runs a country, your first mandate is to your people. Your first mandate in office is to the welfare and the well-being of your people, not to the interest of foreigners, which is what we've seen with African leaders, which is what we've seen with many of them. I pray that God will look upon Africa one day and bless Africa with triple of the types of Ibrahim Traore. I pray that countries in Africa will begin having the type of leader like Ibrahim Traore. He is the only one in Africa today, as a president in Africa, who is doing Africa proud. He is the only one. And so Kenyans, your task will be for you to ensure that you don't re-elect such people. And not just for Kenyans, it's for every African country. You got to pay attention to the person in position right now. You got to pay attention. And you got to understand that if you allow yourself to be bamboozled, to be bought, right, to rig your vote, you're going to be the one left holding the bag and in the suffering. A message to all Africans. The power we have is with our vote. The power we have and our voices is with our vote. It's your constitutional and civic right. It's the most powerful weapon you have against leaders like this in your country. You vote them out. You don't re-elect them. That is the only way we can bring change. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please like the video, share the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all.
Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sätter du rör på det får mig att dö för det, baby.